Hello, my friends. D.L. Anderson here. Welcome back to Transformation by Truth podcast as we share the truth concerning these last days and what you must do to save yourself from the violent times that are just ahead. Today's podcast is a word of truth accounting of the end times. The end is coming. The end is near. Today's podcast is entitled End Times 622, an intro to understanding, the key to unlocking the power to learn. The podcast objectives are analyze the link between virtue, knowledge, and the fear of Elohim, reveal the fundamental reason why our people are perishing, reveal the primary blockers to meditation and understanding, and analyze the value of time management and the power of spiritual routine. Welcome. Now, before we begin today's lesson, I would like to welcome all my beloved brothers and sisters in Yahushua Messiah who have been scattered to the four corners of the earth, who Yahuwah has joined to this ministry for such a time as this. I would also like to welcome anyone who is engaging our podcast or videos for the first time. We trust you were led by the set apart spirit in finding us. And if you continue to be led, we hope you stay with us. For these are troubling times, and an evil day is just ahead. To this end, if you are watching this video on YouTube and you have not subscribed to our channel, click the subscribe button below, and you will be alerted whenever we post new videos. Also, if you have any questions at the conclusion of this video, you can ask them using the link in the podcast description below the video player. Last but not least, if you like the video, please give it a thumbs up so YouTube can share it with believers like us. The power of a sound mind and a pure heart. Shalom, my beloved brothers and sisters, and welcome to day 617 of our exposition of lawlessness. In the most recent podcast, we analyze the fundamental degree of knowledge. Enter consideration. Now, I shared many revelations in that podcast, and yet there is one you must receive before we progress our analyses on knowledge and its 3 degrees. Consider this, my friends, and do not forget. Of the 64 degrees of perfection, consideration is the one that has the power to stop the progression of death before it is ever started. Now, as you learned, she achieves this major milestone by shutting the door on complacency. For where there is no complacency, there can be no disregard. Facts. And where there is no disregard, there is no kicker to initiate the progression of death. Facts again. Now, as you learned in the most recent podcast, consideration opens the door for you to unlock the power of persistent meditation. That is the perpetual consideration of the Torah of Elohim and the path you must follow to fulfill his will in your life. Here lies the key. Vis-a-vis, you must choose to commit yourself to persistent meditation. As I say, the Ruach will do his part. He will keep the process going. But you are the one who must make the decision to start. Now, Psalm 119, 15 through 16 is revealing. I will meditate on your precepts, and I regard your ways. I meditate on your orders and regard your ways. Psalm 119:48. I will lift up my hands to your commands, which I have loved, and I will meditate on your laws. Psalm 119:78. Let the proud be put to shame, for they dealt perversely with me without a cause. But I will meditate in your commandments. Now, every time the psalmist says, I will meditate, he is in effect saying, I choose to meditate, for it is my desire. This is evidence he has ascended to the plane of knowledge, for virtue is choosing the Father's will, and the fear of Elohim is the beginning of knowledge. Not only this, but we have also proven that virtue and the fear of Elohim are spiritual degrees of the heart. And thus, when it comes to consideration, meditation, and all the degrees of knowledge, you are now operating with the power of a sound mind and the power of a pure heart. Now, that said, if you continue in these powers and you master the precepts of consideration, then you will move on to the focal degree of knowledge. Enter understanding, another powerful and prominent degree of perfection. And so, get out your paper and pencils and take good notes, for understanding empowers you to perceive all the authors of divine scripture and every line they ever wrote. Let's get started. They are unwilling to learn. Now, first things first, as the focal degree of knowledge, understanding is the main event of knowledge. For although the key to unlocking the power of knowledge is acceptance, you cannot accept what you do not understand. Simple facts. Therefore, as it is my custom, I will provide a definition for understanding to ensure we are considering this degree of knowledge from a uniform spiritual perspective. By definition, to understand is to perceive the meaning or idea of, to be thoroughly familiar with, to grasp the implications or importance of a matter, to learn, to comprehend, or to hear. Now, as all the degrees of knowledge are designed to empower us to receive the Father's will, understanding plays the biggest part. And we can see this by its definition. To wit, to understand is to perceive the meaning or the idea of. As I say, you will struggle to find success in every scenario where you don't understand what you are doing. For understanding opens your eyes to perceive the full breadth of a matter. That includes the conceptual, the analytical, the procedural, and the social models. Now, this speaks to the great danger we will incur when we lack understanding. And it is why our people, past and present, have perished for this deficit more than any other. It is for the following reason, which I ask you to consider and never forget. To understand is to learn and to comprehend. And along these lines, comprehension requires learning, and learning takes time. Here lies the problem. To wit, the majority of our people, past and present, have never been willing to invest their time in all the activities required for them to learn what it takes to become masters of Yahuwah's will. And thus, they have constantly failed to comprehend his will. And where there is no comprehension, there can be no understanding. Ergo, the fundamental reason why our people have perished and are perishing is because they are unwilling to learn. The primary blockers to understanding. Now, it should be clear that by declaring that the majority of our people, past and present, have been unwilling to learn, I am indicting all the false Hebrews, past and present, who have died for their lack of knowledge. Here is why. The fact that these bad actors are unwilling to learn and to comprehend Yahuwah's will is an evolution of the decision they made to ignore the Torah of Elohim. To wit, whereas the psalmist has said, I will meditate on your laws, these transgressors have said, I will not. Now, this is one of many reasons why Yahuwah referred to our forefathers as stupid children. And the same goes for the majority of our people today. Let me tell you something. Many of our people fall into the category of stupid because A, they are unlearned, and B, they are ignorant of the unlimited potential and power involved in learning, especially when it comes to our spiritual education. My dear friends, hear me carefully as I say, if half of our people took spiritual education seriously, we would have already turned back the curse of this captivity, and we would all be home again. And yet, seeing as this is not our reality, we find ourselves in the days of Noah, where Yahuwah is only saving one from a city and two from a clan. For a man of learning in this nation is even harder to find than an honest man. Now, here again, the primary reason why our people are unlearned is because they fail to meditate on the Torah of Elohim. And although there are many reasons why they fail, the truth is they are all irrelevant. As I say, there will be no excuses at the judgment. For if we fail to do Yahuwah's will, then we will surely die. And that is the final word. Deal with it. Notwithstanding, it is appropriate that we segregate those who fail to meditate from those who refuse to consider, for the former may have an opportunity to repent. That said, the question we should chiefly entertain is this: what are the primary blockers to meditation and understanding? The answer is sure, and it is one of the 80 degrees of lawlessness we have not yet discussed. Enter distractions. Now, it goes without saying that distractions are designed to prevent you from doing those things required for you to receive the Father's will. Remember, if you cannot receive his will, then you cannot do his will. And if you cannot do his will, then you cannot be saved. This speaks to the great danger of distractions. Vis-a-vis, distractions have the power to make you complacent, which opens you up to disregard, i.e., the degree of lawlessness, which kicks off the progression of death. Now, understanding the vast implications of this scenario, the question of the hour is quite simply this: how do we guard ourselves from distractions when it is situated at the higher levels of the mountain of lawlessness and we have only ascended to the spiritual plane of knowledge? The answer is sure, and I will address it in the next section. But first, we should take a closer look at how the enemy is using distractions to subvert those who have already escaped the progression of death. Let's make it happen. The power of your routine. Now, first of all, we can easily come to see how the enemy works to distract us by understanding the requirements upon receiving the will of Elohim. And the majority of these are found within the definitions of consideration, meditation, and understanding. For example, we have already established that understanding cannot be achieved apart from learning, and learning takes time. Here lies the inflection. Consider this, my friends, and be advised. Seeing as learning takes time, the enemy will do his best to prevent you from managing your time effectively. To wit, he works to prevent you from engaging your mind and your heart in consideration and meditation. For these are the foundation of understanding and learning. Ergo, each distraction is formed to lead you to invest your time in activities that have little to no value as it pertains to learning, such that you may lack understanding. Now, this speaks to the complexity of distractions. To wit, distractions cover a very broad spectrum, and yet there are two threads that unite them all. A, they possess little to no value, and B, they are executed at the expense of learning. Along these lines, most distractions are not sinful in nature, which is why they are so dangerous. For as they are not openly sinister, we often fail to perceive them as an imminent threat. This is why our focus should not be on how sinful a matter is. On the rather, our focus should be on the value of the activity and ensuring that we are allocating quality time to our spiritual practices. For look, listen, it has been written, all things are lawful for me, but all things are not expedient. In effect, just because something is lawful does not mean that it is the right thing to do. For many things that are lawful do not have the power to edify. To wit, they are not a good investment. And as time is your most precious commodity, you must invest it wisely. Now, that said, I will remind you what I told you early on in this exposition of lawlessness. That is, the best defense is a good offense. Here is how that translates into your battles with distractions. You must be intentional when it comes to dedicating time to your spiritual practices to ensure you are growing in the set apart spirit and progressively mastering the Father's will. Along these lines, you must set aside time each day to pray, to study, to meditate, and to achieve every facet of Yahuwah's will for that day. And if you would receive it, this is how we are being saved. For we are saved from day to day. Plainly speaking, Yahuwah's desire is that we make progress towards all the major milestones in our quest on a daily basis. This speaks to the power of routine, which should never be underestimated. Here is why. The power of your reality is a reflection of the power of your routine. Ergo, if you desire a reality of power in the Ruach of Elohim, create a spiritual routine that can generate said power. Now, we can tie all this back to understanding. To wit, you will never create a spiritual routine that can produce a reality of power if you cannot comprehend what that routine looks like. And you will never comprehend what that routine looks like if you don't make time to learn what it looks like. Here again, this is why you must be intentional about learning. And so, if you're the kind of person who doesn't like to read the scriptures, let me tell you something. When it comes to spiritual warfare, you will be DOA. Likewise, if you're the kind of person who struggles to find time to operate in the 7 pillars of our faith, you're either a false Hebrew or you will be one very soon. Why? It's because you will never succeed the progression of death if you don't guard yourself from distractions. And the best way to guard yourself from distractions is to commit yourself to a spiritual routine that fosters persistent growth in the Ruach of Elohim. If you do, you will achieve more than a reality that is free of distractions. As I say, you will be one of the few persons in this world who is increasing their levels of understanding every day. And thus, when Yahuwah speaks to his chosen elect by his set apart spirit, you will know, for you will have an ear to hear what he has to say. Selah. Now, here is the final word. The fool will scoff at every turn because he takes no time to learn. Brothers and sisters, hear me carefully as I say, a people who are uneducated will always end up in captivity. Always. And it should be clear that this is the primary reason why we ended up here. Look here. You can obtain any reality if you have the power to believe it. And yet, the power of faith must unite with the power of learning so you can understand how to achieve it. For where there is no understanding, there can be no acceptance, and thus you forfeit the power to receive it. Heretofore, I recommend, don't be a fool who wastes his time poisoning his mind. Rather, give yourself to practice and learning, because hell hath enlarged herself and made her mouth wide. For all who lack understanding go to a pit of endless burning. Selah. Now, here is today's assignment. Meditate on today's lesson. And if you have any questions, please submit them using the form at pinnacleofholiness.com. And I will respond to you as soon as I can. Now, here is what's next. We completed today's podcast, End Times 622, an intro to understanding. And the next podcast is entitled End Times 623, An Intro to Acceptance. I will post this podcast on Wednesday, March 11th, 2026. Until then, my friends, continue to be led by the Spirit of Elohim, continue to watch, continue to pray, continue in fasting, and most of all, continue to be focused, for the end is coming. The end is near.